I believe she took the quartermaster sommelier certification also. I'm not very sure, but she was a very good inspiration in college. And so, come 2013, I took my internship in the US. So I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, started working for Hyatt Regency as a server, actually. So during that time, I didn't really have any plans on becoming a sommelier. I just wanted to be in the food and wine industry. I just wanted to be a server and eventually own a restaurant. But I came across a movie. I'm sure everyone's familiar with this. It's called Som. So during that year, I was able to watch the movie, and I told myself, you know what, I'm in the US. Why not take the quartermaster sommelier certification as well while I'm here? Take advantage of the access to the certification. So, but before I did, I actually went for the WSET Level 2 certification at the Napa Valley Wine Academy. Eventually took my certification with the quartermaster sommeliers in Nashville. Then went to Napa Valley for my level 3 at the Napa Valley Wine Academy. So I think that was 2016 when I took my level 3 in Napa Valley. 2017, I moved back to the Philippines, started working for sommelier selection, which is really one of the best experiences I've had in the industry. I was introduced to the wine industry, to the wine people. I'm sure most of you are on here as well. In 2018, I'm sure Cyril remembers every bit that happened during that competition. I placed third. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I placed third. And then 2019, I won the competition. So yeah, it was really more of the curiosity that I had really when it started all in college. I was always curious, especially about beverages. It could be beer, it could be coffee, it could be other alcoholic beverages as well. And it was really out of curiosity and my knack for geography as well. I love looking at maps. That helped me a lot to be in the industry when I started taking the courses as well. I started loving wine, and yeah, it was all about the experience, really.
How many years were you in America? I didn't get that. How many years? Ian, how many years in
I was there for 4 years.
4 years?
Moved there 2013, moved back to the Philippines in 2017.
No love life, huh? Unlike Cyril, he found the love in America. So nothing like that for you. Okay.
Not in the US.
Okay. Okay. Cyril, how about your journey? Tell us more.
Well, my journey was a little different in the sense that when I first started in the industry, what I really wanted to be was a chef. I really wanted to cook, um, and very soon I found out that I worked in a kitchen for a couple of years in a French kitchen, and I very soon I found out that I was not maybe meant to be in the kitchen. And not just myself, a lot of people told me that as well. um, so, but my passion in the industry, in the hospitality industry as a whole, was always there from a very young, even growing up in India. And so when I had an opportunity to work in the front of the house, I took it, and this was during my school years in Philadelphia. Um, and then I started watching people, drinking wine and enjoying it, and talk about it. And I had, like, as a 19 or 20-year-old, kid, I had no idea what they were talking about, but it was very interesting to hear about the way they describe a drink. I grew up drinking Bud Light and Miller Light, and I was like, I don't talk about these things the way that people talk about wine. So, and eventually, when I started going to Drexel University, I took some classes in beverage, and went to my first wine tasting. And I spit wine all over the person that presented the wine because I was trying to slurp like everybody else was, and I choked and spit. So it was very interesting. But eventually I fell into it because the GM that I was working for in a restaurant decided that he wanted to move on, and the next in line was me. And but the owner of the restaurant, he said, listen, you're great at everything that you do except for you don't know anything about wine. And if you want to be the GM of this restaurant, you need to know about wine, because we have a very, we're one of the best wine programs in Philadelphia at the time. So I said, you need to learn about wine, because I can't really hire another person to run the wine program. So the GM has to run the wine program. So I said, okay, how can I make it happen? He said, listen, if you want to go to classes on your day off, I will pay for the classes. So that's kind of like you are basically taking the classes and on your day off. So I don't have to pay for your day. But so I decided to take those classes, and on free days, I would also go work with other sommeliers in the city, and just like whenever they were tasting wines with suppliers, I would just sit there and watch them and taste the wines and talk about the wines. And eventually I got invited to blind tastings. And so I just started forming a group of people in the industry that were all wine, some of the best wine tasters. And I just started tasting wine with them. And in the beginning, I did not have much to say because I didn't know what anything was. But eventually, I started understanding what the flavors were, and yeah, I mean, and then I met my wife, and we started having arguments over wine and what tastes better. And so yeah, we started, and that's how my sommelier career started. Although, I was never, I took the classes and all that stuff. I've always been more of a operational person in the restaurant, with the capability of being able to say, okay, I can write a wine list. I can do I can educate, or I can teach people about wine. But that's how my career started. It was always together. And it's been a very important lesson for me, because I can see it the way a general manager would look at a P&L. They will look at it and say, each line, what does that person bring in, revenue wise, right? Do we need this person? Do we need? So it's a very important way to look at it when it comes to a business. So yeah, that's my path towards being a sommelier.
When did you move to Manila, Cyril? You guys got married in 2009 with Pierre?
2009, and then we moved here 2011.
Okay. Been here close to almost a decade now.
Yes. And my career has always been not just about wine. It's been about beverage as a whole. So I do study a lot of different spirits, and study some mixology, but I'm not a mixologist or anything like that. I do know how to make good classic cocktails and things like that. But that's the well-rounded nature that most people will go for when it comes to being a sommelier.
Thank you. Ian and Cyril, let's talk about the local industry. I think Cyril has more experience, but Ian has a good view as well in his perspective. But I'd like to talk about the coffee culture and how it relates to it. If you guys recall, that coffee culture started I think in 2013. When I say the coffee culture aspect, it refers to the booming of third wave coffee. You see more crafted or branded coffee into the wine list, into the beverage program rather.
Mhm.
And then you see cafes opening, but sadly you see cafes opening, from diving spots to like in all the way to San Juan, Pangasinan, among others. Do we see this for wine, or are we experiencing it now? Very much like when coffee had a boom, and we also had some sort of a explosion for gin. Do we have the same for wine now? You see, obviously there's more importers, there's more sommeliers being labeled, education. I think Wine Story, Carl was saying that they're experiencing the high enrollment now. So it seems that we're in that direction. But what do you guys think? Are we? But I think we're still far away. But I think we're getting there. What do you guys think?
Well, if you don't mind, Ian,
Yeah, go ahead.
um, it's a loaded question because if you were to ask me back in January what I thought, it would be a completely different answer than what it is now. Um, and but one thing you're absolutely right about, like the coffee culture, the gin culture. There's been trends that have been uh, developing, and we see a lot of these trends come in and out. Um, but I think wine is here to stay, in my opinion. But it's not where we want it to be. There, from the time that I moved to the Philippines in 2011 to where we are in 2020, there's been a huge growth. Because I remember when I moved here, we with the amount of wines that we could find in a range that the younger generation could drink was very limited, whether it was experimental or something that we can afford, things like that. It was very limited. It was either very inexpensive wines, mass-produced wines, or very expensive and special wines that you could find. There's something in between was very hard to find. But now, over a period of the last 10 years or so, we have seen the growth in it, and it's because of a lot of importers that are seeing that that the younger generation are looking to drink more wine, but they don't necessarily have the deep pockets as their older like parents or whatever. Um, and but having said that, um, the because of that reason, and also because of the growth of tourism in the Philippines, we have seen numerous hotels, numerous restaurants, and a lot of people that have either studied, abroad, come back and open their own restaurants, like Filipinos come back and open restaurants and things like that. And they understand that there is a opportunity to uh, make more money on beverage sales, not just wine, but beverage sales. And then there's options for them to purchase wines at, like, 500,000 pesos and pour it by the glass. So the industry itself has grown, but obviously it comes to a very, very dead end stop in 2020 because of this COVID situation. But I think a wine or beverage as a whole is always going to be around. It's been around for centuries, and it will be around for a long time, because this is people enjoy doing certain things, like going out to eat, like drinking wine or drinking beverages. It will stay around. It'll be around for a long period of time.
Ian?
Yeah, that's a and I definitely agree with that. But to add to the whole coffee situation happening in the Philippines right now, I think everybody should know that the Philippines have always been producing coffee. And I think if we compare coffee to wine, the access is really easier in terms of coffee. We have been producing coffee ever since Spanish came in, to colonize the country. It even came to a point when we were the only source of coffee in the world, and I believe that was in the 19th century. So that really plays a big factor as to how our consumption is in terms of coffee nowadays. And really, the whole COVID-19 situation really played a big role in that because, now Filipinos have more time at home to brew their coffee in whatever tools or whatever ways they want. It could be AeroPress and all that coffee stuff, but it really played a big role, and our access to coffee is really easy. Uh, Unlike wine, where it has to be imported from other countries, and wine, people will have to spend more in terms of alcohol. I definitely agree with Cyril that wine will always be there. Alcohol has been a big part of the Filipino culture. Um, However, there is this misconception about alcohol in general for most conservatives, that being a wine professional is for alcoholics and all. But in terms of the placement of the wine industry, we're not there yet. We are not on our third wave yet. I think we're still on the first, maybe second, because we're still in the we're still in that stage where we're introducing wine to everybody. But now it's evolving. Now people are becoming more educated, and which is really good because it doesn't have to be expensive wines that they're getting in the groceries, but at least they're spending money for wine. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, I don't think people would be spending 300 pesos for a bottle. I think they would think that that would be very expensive. But now they're willing to spend money for wine because it's easy, it's there, it's accessible nowadays also.
You know,
I would like to add like the economy itself. I mean, you see places like BGC and Makati and BGC. You can find condos and apartments for people to go in and say, I'm gonna live here, um, and they have the opportunities with the workforce, meaning um, their salaries have also kind of increased, so there's more money for them to spend on different things, on luxury items, if I may. So I think and I'm going to show my age here because my age group, right? um, when my age group used to drink, or people in my age group drink now, they drink for the fact of wanting to get drunk, right? But you look at uh, Ian's age group or even yours, but they're more like, okay, we want to enjoy going out to dinner or going out to. So it's a generational gap as well, and the generation before me used to be like, okay, only certain people can go out to drink, the other people cannot, like things like that there. So the generational gaps are also there. uh, but I think if you watch that, like the next generation, like my kids, eventually they will see that what we're doing is enjoying a glass of wine, enjoying a bottle of wine over dinner or whatever, and they will feel, okay, this is going to be okay. This is going to be. It's not like you have to. Uh, no, you cannot have wine yet. My son wants to have wine, so but you can have meat, yes. So but yeah, I think that generational gap is going to be is going to define how as a culture we move forward, when it comes to accepting alcoholic beverages into our daily lives.
yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
and
both of you. You know, Ian was selling. I think we're on the second wave actually.
Mm.
Japan being the most advanced in my opinion. Hong Kong, Singapore, along those lines. Then us, and along with a few developing countries. We'll move into the next topic, and very timely. There's a question which is in line with the third topic. This is a question from Elizabeth Tan. How do you guys make wine more approachable to more people, or demystify wine? How can you as sommeliers promote the pairing of food and wine with Filipino food? It's not very usual. Obviously, we're not a wine drinking country, but how do you integrate that? Given that Filipino food or whatnot is a very strong flavor. It's a strong food. So how would you guys at least try to promote in your ways? In perhaps not in your maybe in your profession as well, or maybe in your social media. How do you guys integrate somewhat of our local cuisine with wine? Ian, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think with the thing with Filipino cuisine in general is that a lot of the flavor factors that play a big role in Filipino cuisine would be fat and acid. And that is something that wines go really well easily. And so having wine with almost any Filipino dish is actually something to celebrate, because you could be having adobo with pork, or with both chicken and pork, but you have a lot of factors like fat and acid that is in that food that can be easily paired with almost any type of wine, really. uh, our dishes in the Philippines is not as complex in terms of flavors as compared to dishes in Malaysia and Singapore, or even in India for that matter. So wines are actually easier to pair, I would say, in Filipino dishes as compared to other cuisines.
And I agree with Ian 100%. I think there's a lot of opportunities. Go ahead. Sorry. um, yeah, there's a lot of ways to introduce wines, and if you look at what's available out there right now, whether it's Toronto's from Argentina, or Chenin Blancs from South Africa. I mean, there are so many wines out there that can be paired well with Filipino cuisine. It's just, I mean, to me, it's more about acceptance of um, wine into the dining table. You know what I mean? Like, you can actually drink wine with adobo, or kare kare, or things like that. So I think um, it's eventually going to get there. And get more as people get more adventurous, I think people will start to say, okay, let's try different things. Um, to me, I mean, Bicol Express with a nice Riesling is perfect. But as a sommelier, like, we have to teach people to say, okay, you should try this, and you should, and a lot of times if we tell people, have your own opinion, like, here's a glass of wine, um, tell us what you think about it. Most people will say whether they like it or they don't, but you can understand where they're coming from. But most of the time, they will look for us to answers, and we can guide people towards that. And which I know Ian does that quite a bit in D2, when you do your tasting dinners with Chef Cyril,
Yeah.
and it's great. I mean, that's what we need, as people start to experiment with different things.
Mhm.
Some might work, some might not, but at the end of the day, it's all about experimenting.
Yep.
Just to piggyback on this, no? Raymond Manzanilli has a question. Give me, you and Ian and Cyril, give me one example of a pairing of a local dish that you have personally tasted and experienced yourself, and it worked basically.
Mhm.
One Filipino dish in a particular wine.
Uh,
Give just
well, in my case, since I mentioned fat and acid earlier, I remember having this dish, and it was from Chef Gaita Flores' Grace Park. So she had this really good dish. She had this lamb adobo that she serves at Grace Park. I paired it with a Pinot Noir, and I think that was one of the best pairings I've actually ever had for Filipino dishes with wine. And a lot of that flavor component really came from the fat and acid of the dish, pairing with the Pinot Noir, which is also high in acid, not as high in tannins, but something mellow to actually accentuate the flavors of the dishes, especially the lamb, because you don't want to ruin the whole gaminess of the dish, as it's lamb. So I think that Pinot Noir really accentuated the whole experience. So yeah, Pinot Noir in general is something to be paired with most Filipino dishes, since most of our dishes in here is made out of pork as well. You have all your lechon, your adobo, your sinigang. Pinot Noir is high in acid, it's low in tannins. Also, we're a red wine drinking country, and so that's something easy to drink for everyone.
so it's lamb adobo and Pinot Noir. Okay,
Oh yeah, yeah,
thank you. I'll give it a try.
yeah.
Cyril, you
Um,
one combo that you like, local cuisine and then wine that you personally tasted and experienced.
Kinilaw.
Oh,
It's basically like a ceviche of fish,
uh-huh.
and then you does the kinilaw also come with like the grilled pork as well, or is that a
That's a sinuglaw. That's where you.
sinigang? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
the smokiness of the pork and the tartness of the kinilaw, which is the fish. It's a really interesting, again, like as Ian talked about, fat and acid, and and to me, I've had that particular dish with, um, whether it's a really nice Godello or even a good Burgundy, or like a very Burgundian style Chardonnay. I mean, it's amazing. Like that smokiness of the pork, and the acid of the fish, and the butteriness of the fish, and like it just really, and like I said, I mean, there's definitely a lot of ways you can bring in these wines to pair, and it's
Yeah.
outstanding.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next topic, which is very relevant. Obviously, is the pandemic, which is very sad for everyone. I mean, for all, no? Not only our industry of food and wine, but in general. What do you think is how will it affect the world of wine industry? Maybe on a local sense. Honestly, I don't see um, us returning very soon, dining very soon. Sadly, we can only do because of again we don't have, unlike other countries that have really strict health standards before you really open.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is vice versa. Um, how do you think will it affect? This is again in line with a question by Claire Toralba. Everyone says COVID-19 or Black Swan changes things, behaviors. How do you think it changes or influence the wine drinking behavior? What changes from a som and wine importer are being absorbed in the new normal? Ian, Cyril, please.
Oh yeah.
Ian?
Well, I think it has started already in terms of change. Since March, we have been doing a lot of winemaker sessions. A lot of webinars being offered by the winemakers themselves, which gave us easier access to see their vineyards, to know about their wines, to learn more about wines in general. And so I think it has changed already. It has started to change. Consumption, it will be it will be more of really because we drink wine as something to cope up with stress, as something that we used to drink after work, and the access is becoming much more easier in terms of online selling. I mean, I myself is affected by the COVID-19, and therefore I started selling wines online. So since a hotel closed down, I started selling wines online, and I noticed a big consumption in terms of alcohol in general at home for most consumers. So yeah, the wine industry really adapts very well and easily, so and quickly too. So yeah.
Cyril?
For me, I think the industry is obviously, like like Ian said, it is changing, um, but I think we're gonna see a lot more changes in the following years. Um, and this is something that during our winemaker sessions, some of the questions that I used to ask the winemakers is to how is their production of this particular vintage. 2020 is going to be challenging because um, a lot of winemakers are also, they have to have a cash flow. They have to have a certain amount of wines that's made, and they sell it, and they're able to keep their companies and wineries running, and that's going to affect the industry and the business as a whole. And um, and and just within winemaking itself, um, harvesting grapes or even making wine in the winery is affected because of this pandemic. So how do the winemakers cope with that? How do they what are they going to do? um, and it's going to be challenging. And right now, I think, um, if you look at it, about a month ago, people were like, okay, this is going to be done soon. uh, Beginning of March, everybody thought like, okay, there's a lockdown, 15 days, maybe a month, we're going to be back open again, everything is going to be back to normal. And here we are in middle of July, we still don't know when it's going to end. I mean, there is no future that we see uh, when it comes to like the pandemic itself. Like, are we going to be safe? Are people going to be okay to go out to eat? So every passing month or day, things change. Um, so in the industry, what I see uh, going forward is that there is going to be challenges when it comes to importing wines, when it comes to be able to getting the wines at a reasonable price, because obviously what you see in the economy is also a lot of you know challenges within the economies, like individual economies, to say, okay, Europe is not going to be able to send wine here, or the taxes are going to be higher, and like obviously like suppliers here are going to have a much different price points than what they can. So it's going to be a challenging industry over the next few months, or even couple of years, I feel. But like I said before, it's always going to be around. I mean, wine's always going to be around. People are always going to want to drink it. They're always going to want to get it. And like Ian said, when you're staying home, and we say, let's just buy some wine and let's drink it. Um, and as um, the whole hospitality industry in a whole, people will say, hey, we're not going out and spending money on eating out, so let's just enjoy a good meal at home, so let's buy some good wine. Instead of me buying just grocery wines at home, I'm going to buy something good. So Ian, what you're doing, and Boots, what you're helping a lot of people do as well, like like Kevin and JC, like trying to get these wines out there. I think it's important, because it gives people an opportunity to try different wines and not necessarily just have to buy it in grocery stores and things like that. So, um, but the industry will survive. Right now is a challenging time. In the next few months, next few years is going to be a challenging time, I think. But I think it's going to survive. A month and a half ago, if you had asked me, I would have said, oh, 2021 will be back in business. Right now, I think things are going to be a little longer than that.
Yeah.
Another follow-up question during in line with this discussion is this is a question from Patrick Pagtanak is what would be the trend considering that we are approaching the most festive season of the year? Do we see a V-shaped forecast wherein everything will just slow down, then come Burr months, it will just pick up, and then the normal Filipino trend, everybody buying, consumer spending is up. Do we see that coming this year?
If you don't mind, Ian, I'll
Yeah, go ahead.
Currently, I don't see that trend going up because of the way the economy is. Right now, there's a lot of, if you look at expat spending, it's very, very low, right? If you look at people outside of the Philippines, they don't have necessarily the capability or the jobs or capabilities within the Philippines, like people that used to have jobs in Metro Manila and send money out to the provinces. They don't have the money. So as a whole, the economy is really hurting. So I don't, come Burr months or even the festive season, I don't see that changing in a big way. But Filipinos are known to
Be optimistic.
No, but they're known to enjoy the holiday season, and which is great because this is something that they really look forward to, right? And so there will be spending, but if you look at the amount of spending compared to last year, I think it's going to be way low, just because of what is what the economy is doing. But still, people will spend. That's their way. I mean, that's the values of the Filipino people. Like they want to share their love through gifts. So.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think there will be a big change in terms of consumption. There will be change in terms of spending. It won't be the same as before, definitely. But Filipinos are known for celebrations, and I think Christmas is really the most important holiday season in the country, and so people will still spend. It won't be the same way it used to be, but there will still be some spending happening for the holiday season.
Most definitely. I think in general, we're very optimistic, I think, as Filipinos, even if you're a finance guy but and then you're right, come December, people still spend on their dinner table just to cover what the sadness we're experiencing now. We have a question from Laura Guevara. Do you have any suggestions on how to make virtual wine and food pairing more creative and interesting for participants, aside from your typical webinars? I think in some parts of the world they do actual food and wine pairing. The wine is on a 100 ml bottle. They'll send it to you, and you'll do a virtual tasting with the chef and with the sommelier. But other than that, what do you think are more the creative things that you can think of during this time, besides virtual tasting, if any? Thank you, Laura, for that question.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think there will be a big change. Because at the end of the day, really, food and wine is really meant to be consumed with friends. And wine, I think hard for educational purposes, yes. I think online courses and online webinars are really effective for that matter. But food and wine, I believe, is really meant to be consumed with friends and with family as well. So yeah.
Well, I totally agree with Ian on that one. I mean, it really is a challenge when it comes to how can we make an experience of drinking wine uh, and enjoying food with different people. Um, you know, it's I mean, for me, like I haven't gone out of the house unless it's for work, for social reasons at all. um, and it's it's scary because of of my family and all that stuff. But um, but I will say I have had Zoom sessions with friends to drink wine. It's not the same as as enjoying wine together, where we will, like, drink the same wine, we talk about the same wine, and here we're just talking about life in general, right? So it's nothing about wine or the food that we eat, because we're not eating and drinking the same thing. Uh, but yeah, I mean, educational. As a restaurateur, I have also looked into possibly doing these kind of uh, Zoom tastings and dinners that, like, that Boots was mentioning. We would send out food and small bottles of wine and things like that. But it's really challenging to get everybody together and get everybody in the same mindset, unless you're there in one group. So yeah, these are the times, I guess.
Um, Another question before we move to the next topic, just to close out this topic of pandemic. This is again a question from Claire Toralba. Would you have an idea, or I know it's hard to quantify, the increase in daily wine consumption? Was it triggered by the pandemic?
um, Wine consumption, I am not sure. I don't have the numbers, but I only have what I talk to my friends about, who are in the industry and suppliers. Um, like, the increase in consumption has gone up in private buyers. But it's relative. You have to understand, like, if private consumers are buying more, the restaurants and hotels are buying a way lot less than that. So
Mhm.
basically, the people that are drinking in hotels and restaurants are now drinking at home, because they can't drink in hotels and restaurants.
Mhm.
So it's really, I don't think it's gone up or down. I think it's relatively balanced. Um, but but I mean, that's my sense. I mean, that's me also as a wine buyer for the restaurant. I don't buy wine for the restaurant anymore because we don't sell it, but I do buy it for my own consumption because
Yeah.
I don't go out to drink. So,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, that's what I feel.
Yeah. For the first 2 months, I think there was a decrease in wine consumption because we had the liquor ban as well. So you have to remember that.
Mm.
Now, in terms of online wine selling and sales, I think there was an increase in terms of wine resellers. So, so I think I, I don't think there was a decrease or an increase in consumption, but people are now becoming more aware that there are online sellers. There are wine distributors selling online as well. And so for the next 2 months, I think there will be an increase in consumption at home.
I
So
agree with that, Ian, because wine has been more accessible now.
yeah.
Meaning, like, hey, before, if I wanted to get a certain wine, I had to, either go to the store or go to the supplier and get the wine, or the
Mm,
restaurant or retail stores, things like that. Now there are a lot of resellers, and that has opened doors for a lot of people to say, okay, um, but what I think we should, as a whole, is like try to market it in that way. Like, there's a lot of people that can help you buy wine, because I think there's still a lot of people that don't know where to buy wine, you know. Um, so, but I think in the long run, it's a very positive thing, because wine has become more accessible for people.
Yeah. So this is the last topic. Again, we like to keep our sessions here in Grand Hacienda within that 1 hour time limit. Although it's 9:15, but we started about 8:15. Just one last question for the both of you. This is a question that I often ask to my winemakers or my producers in the portfolio: is what are the wines that you like to drink? In general, can be something that it's not available here. What types of what types of wine you like to drink most often, and what are the least type of wines that you like? Try to shy away more or less on specific wines.
hmm,
Yeah.
interesting. Um, well, I already mentioned earlier, I like Pinot Noir very much, and I think that is a very famous grape variety, yet very complex. It's very difficult to grow, and there are um, different characteristics that can be given by a Pinot Noir from different countries, different regions as well. And I'm a big red wine drinker, and for the Philippine weather, I think Pinot Noir is really the best wine to drink. I mean, give me a glass of Pinot Noir, I won't really mind where it's coming from, but that's just one of my favorite grape varieties. I'm a big rosé drinker as well, and again, the weather really plays a big factor for that. Uh, just for lunch or on a hot afternoon, rosé is really what I go for. Any rosé, actually, it could be from any regions as well. What I try to stay away from, or but won't really ignore. Um, for someone who's very curious and willing to try anything, that's a very difficult question. Because I definitely try anything and everything. When it's wine, I definitely try anything. Yeah, it's a
That
very
is
good,
that
difficult
is a hard
question.
question to answer. What do you stay away from?
Yeah.
Because
So
you're right. I will try everything, and for me, I personally, I like to find wines that are unique and different, like, something that I haven't tried before, um, or something that not everybody is using, and how does it work with the food, not necessarily in a restaurant, but just me personally. What do I like to drink at home? And I do tend to gravitate towards that. Like, when I was talking to Beaumont, and they were talking about their Pinotage, and I was like, "Oh, Boots, when are you going to get their Pinotage?" Like, and
Yeah.
that's what excites me. Like, wines that are harder to find, um, uh, like what's in my glass right now, the Baga, and, like, and that's what's interesting to me. Um, there are certain wines that I would
give me a varietal, Cyril. Just a varietal. Like me, I like my Syrah from a cool climate area, Rhone,
Oh yeah, yeah,
hot.
that too.
But give me a varietal. Give me a grape.
If I was to go with one varietal, like if Chenin Blanc, absolutely love Chenin Blanc. Like I've always because it goes well with food. It goes well with if you don't have food, um, it's great with dessert. It's great as a sparkling if you want. I mean, it's a very 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 versatile wine, and
Good point. That's a very good, not only versatility in terms of food, but versatility, very versatile in terms of winemaking. You can make a sweet
Yeah.
wine, a sparkler,
yeah.
obviously, and
Yeah.
so
And I mean, in I mean, you can make like in France, it's big and rich, and in South Africa, it's a little bit more silky and velvety, and as a dessert wine, it's like rich. I mean, it's the grape can be molded into so many different things. I think.
Mhm.
So to me, that's really something that I enjoy.
thank you guys. We're perfectly into our 1 hour session. Again, I'd like to thank personally two buddies of mine, Cyril and then Ian. Let's all do a silent clap.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your knowledge, experiences with us. If you guys don't mind, if you have wine, please raise it just for photo sessions. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a photo. Cheers, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.
So if you guys want to have more questions with Ian and Cyril, you can follow Cyril with Rickshaw or his Instagram, Cyril Addison. And with Ian with Som Wines in Instagram and obviously his Instagram name, Ian Santos. If you have more questions with them. Again, I'm Buxton Chavez from Gran Hacienda Wines. Thank you guys for joining us for our first episode of Sommelier.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
Cheers.
Cheers to everyone.